The invisible game. My life in candles. I never imagined numbers on a screen would one day define the rhythm of my life. They say the market is just a reflection of supply and demand, of collective behavior and algorithmic response. But for me, the market became something else entirely. Something more intimate, more unforgiving, more revealing. This is not financial advice. What follows is a personal story, a journey through the emotional, mental, and practical landscapes of trading. Nothing here should be taken as a recommendation or instruction to trade. Every trader walks a different path. This is mine. This story isn't about riches or secret strategies. It's not a fairy tale. There are no Lamborghinis or yachts waiting at the end. If that's what you're looking for, you can stop here. This story is about the long, slow shaping of a person. It's about learning to sit still while your heart races. It's about the kind of growth that doesn't happen by reading more or studying harder, but by breaking down and rebuilding. It's about losing, over and over again, until losing doesn't scare you anymore. I didn't come from finance. I had no economics degree. No Wall Street connections. I didn't even know what a pip was the first time I saw a trading chart. But I was hungry. Not just for money. But for freedom. For control over my time. For something that felt alive, reactive, real. I had tried other things, normal things. None of them stuck. They felt flat, predictable, dull. Then, one day, I stumbled on a trading video. A stranger with a webcam talking through his trades. I didn't even understand what he was doing. But I saw the movement. The risk. The speed. I didn't know it then, but that was the beginning of everything. At first, I thought trading was about being smart. Then I thought it was about being fast. Later, I thought it was about finding the right strategy. I was wrong every time. Trading is about none of those things. And all of them, in the right balance. But above all, trading is about being able to stay. Mentally, emotionally, financially. Through storms of self-doubt, euphoria, and endless noise. In this story, I'll take you through that process. Not as a teacher. Not as a guru. Just as someone who started clueless and kept going. Through sleepless nights. Through account blow-ups. Through those small moments when it felt like I finally got it. Only to lose it again. I'll share the stages. The naive optimism. The desperation. The obsession. The burnouts. The rebuilding. And finally, the shift. Where trading became mine. This is not a manual. It's a memoir. Not about profits, but about process. Every chapter in this story marks a different mental state, a different level of consciousness. Because becoming a trader isn't about finding a method. It's about becoming someone who can handle both silence and chaos with the same breath. If you've ever stared at a chart and felt like it was staring back, this story is for you. If you've ever been in a trade and felt your heart beat faster than it should, this story is for you. And if you've ever lost everything and still came back the next morning, this story is especially for you. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Spark. It started with a video. Just a random click in the middle of a restless night. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't even know what trading really was. I was just scrolling. Lost in that familiar modern days of tabs and noise. When a thumbnail caught my eye. A grainy image of a man in a hoodie, sitting in a dark room lit only by glowing monitors. The title said something like $1,200 in 10 minutes live trading. I clicked. I didn't know what a candlestick chart was. I had never heard of MetaTrader, or futures, or leverage. But I saw something in that man's eyes. Some quiet focus, some strange rhythm to his actions. Click. Pause. Wait. Exit. Click again. I didn't know it then, but I had just lit the fuse. The next night, I watched another video. Then another. Then 10. I fell down a rabbit hole of traders talking in strange languages. Support, resistance, pips, price action, stop hunts. I didn't understand it, but I couldn't stop watching. It felt like a secret world. A place where people weren't waiting for a paycheck. They were taking what they wanted. On their terms. That was the hook. It wasn't greed. It was freedom. The idea that I didn't need a boss, or a building, or even permission. All I needed was a laptop and some skill. At least, that's what I thought. Within a week, I had downloaded a trading app. Opened a demo account. I don't even remember what I traded first. Some random forex pair. I had no idea what I was doing. I just clicked buy. And it went up. The rush was immediate. Dopamine. Power. The feeling of doing something. For a moment, I felt like a genius. Then I clicked again. And again. Eventually, I lost the entire demo balance. But it didn't matter. I wasn't discouraged. I was fascinated. I remember sitting up late into the night, drawing lines on charts, trying to spot patterns, thinking I was discovering the formula. The screen glowed like firelight in a dark cave. And I was the caveman, mesmerized by this new magic. Back then, I thought I was close. That maybe I just needed the right indicator, or to understand the news releases, or to tweak my strategy. I believed success was just a few steps away. What I didn't realize was how far I really was. I was standing at the edge of a canyon. On one side, me, full of dreams and fantasies. On the other, the trader I would one day become. Hardened, calm, methodical. And between us was everything I didn't yet know. The pain, the failure, the doubt, the surrender. But I didn't see any of that. All I saw were green candles and screenshots of profits. I went to sleep that night dreaming of financial freedom. And in the morning, I opened my first real account. A small one. Barely a few $100s. But to me, it was everything. A ticket out. A weapon. A symbol. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. It felt personal. Like a secret mission. I didn't want questions or opinions. I wanted to figure it out for myself. I thought I had found it. The spark. The path. The truth. What I had really found was the beginning of a transformation. The market doesn't care who you are when you start. But it will show you who you really are, whether you're ready to see it or not. That first trade was the first step. Not into wealth. But into the fire. And I walked in smiling. Chapter 2. Drowning in information. Once I placed that first trade, everything changed. I wasn't just curious anymore. I was consumed. I wanted to learn everything. Every strategy. Every setup. Every secret. I started watching videos during meals. Listening to trading podcasts while I walked. I joined forums full of strangers arguing about indicators, brokers, and leverage ratios. My search history was a tangled mess of terms I barely understood. RSI divergence, Fibonacci retracement, VWAP, order blocks. I wrote them down like spells I had to master. It felt productive. Like I was advancing. But the truth was, I was just getting lost. One night, I sat in front of 3 monitors. Charts open, signals flashing, economic calendars pinned, Twitter feed scrolling. And I realized something strange. I had no idea what to do. Too many voices. Too many systems. One said buy, another said sell. Another said do nothing. I wanted certainty. But all I found was contradiction. So I tried to follow them all. I'd trade a breakout in the morning, a mean reversion setup in the afternoon, and scalp the news at night. Sometimes I'd draw support zones like a price action trader. Other times I'd throw on indicators like a Christmas tree. I was everywhere and nowhere. A tourist in my own strategy. And the more I learned, the more confused I became. I bought courses. Cheap ones, expensive ones. Some promised a psychological edge. Others guaranteed a 95% win rate. I studied backtests. I filled notebooks with entry criteria and risk rules. I told myself it was discipline. But it wasn't. It was desperation in disguise. I thought if I just studied more, I'd finally find the answer. The perfect system. The key. But I didn't know that trading doesn't reward how much you know. It rewards how well you understand yourself. And I didn't. Not yet. Each week brought a new obsession. One week I was all in on MACD. The next, I swore by naked charts and price action. I was like a child changing costumes, hoping the right one would give me power. And each time I lost, I blamed the strategy. But the truth is, I didn't give anything time to breathe. I didn't stick with anything long enough to know if it worked. Because I didn't want to test it. I wanted it to work now. The pressure was building. I had started with demo accounts, but soon I moved to live trading again. Small size. Big emotions. Every tick made my stomach turn. Some days I made money and thought, I'm getting it. The next day I lost it all back and thought, I need a new method. It was exhausting. Mentally. Emotionally. Spiritually. I was studying the market every day, but I was learning nothing about myself. I wasn't trading with clarity. I was reacting. Jumping from idea to idea, as if more information would finally quiet the noise. But the noise was coming from inside me. And the worst part? I didn't know I was drowning. It felt like progress. It felt like hustle. But it was chaos. And chaos looks productive when you don't know what peace feels like. Looking back, I understand now. I had to go through that. I had to taste confusion to value simplicity. I had to chase every mirage to realize the water was always in me. At the time, though, I just kept going. Searching. Clicking. Learning. All I knew was that I hadn't found it yet. And I couldn't stop until I did. Chapter 3. My first trade. It wasn't supposed to be real. It was just a small account, just a test. But it felt real. My hands were sweating. My heart was pounding. The moment I clicked buy, something shifted. I still remember the pair. Your USD. It was the only name I recognized. I didn't have a strategy, or even a plan. I was just staring at the chart, watching candles form, and something inside me whispered, now. So I entered. A single micro lot. Practically nothing. But in my mind, it might as well have been $1 million position. The price ticked up. I was instantly in profit. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Power. The sense that I had done something and it had worked. I had pushed a button, and the market had responded. I was hooked. The next few minutes were a blur. I was staring at every tick, every pip. The position went a little more in my favor. I started calculating what I could make if I had traded a bigger size. $10 became $100 in my mind. Then $1,000. I imagined scaling up, quitting my job, trading from a beach. Then the candle reversed. One red bar. Then another. My tiny profit disappeared. I watched the green turn gray, then red. I didn't move. I froze. I told myself, it'll come back. It didn't. I stared at the screen for 10 more minutes, unwilling to close the loss. Somehow, clicking buy had been easy. But closing a losing trade? That felt like cutting off my own hand. Eventually, I closed it. A small loss. Insignificant on paper. But it felt heavy. Like something had cracked. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because of the money, but because of what I had felt. The rush. The panic. The confusion. It was all so visceral. No simulation, no demo, no YouTube video had prepared me for that. The next day, I placed another trade. This one I managed better. I set a stop loss. I followed a plan. It worked. I made a little back. I started trading more often. Still small, but with a growing hunger. I thought I was learning. And in some ways, I was. But I was also building a habit. An emotional cycle I didn't fully understand. Win, feel invincible. Lose, feel attacked. Repeat. I had entered the loop without realizing it. And the problem with the loop is that it doesn't care how smart you are. It doesn't care what strategy you use. It only cares about one thing. How you react to pressure. Looking back now, I know that first trade wasn't just a technical decision. It was the opening of a door I didn't know I had inside me. A door to competition, fear, desire, control. The market had touched something raw in me. Something ancient. And once it did, I couldn't go back to being the same person. I wasn't just trying to make money. I was trying to prove something. To myself. To life. To the world. That's why that first trade mattered. Not because of the outcome. But because it revealed what was at stake. And from that day forward, I would never look at myself. Or my decisions. The same way again. Chapter 4. The cycle begins. I thought I was getting better. That I was evolving. I had learned about stop losses, position sizing, economic calendars. I had even started using a journal. Writing down my trades, reviewing my entries. It all felt so serious, so professional. But beneath the surface, I was stuck in a loop. Lose. Rest. Study. Hope. Deposit. Repeat. At first, I didn't see the pattern. I thought each failure was isolated, the result of one bad trade, one poor decision, one missed stop. But they weren't accidents. They were symptoms. The wins came, sure. And when they did, they were intoxicating. A few green days in a row and I felt untouchable. I'd increase my size. I'd take more trades. I'd stop journaling. I'd stop following rules. Then one bad trade. One slip. One impulsive decision. And suddenly, I was spiraling. It always started the same way. A loss that I couldn't accept. I would take a second trade to recover, but not from a place of logic. It was revenge, pure and simple. Not against the market. But against the feeling of being wrong. That's when things got dangerous. Because I wasn't trading setups anymore. I was trading emotions. I told myself I was learning. And maybe I was. But what I didn't understand then was that knowledge wasn't my problem. Execution was. I knew what I should do. I just couldn't do it. So I created little rituals. I'd promise myself not to trade until after news. I'd set daily loss limits. I'd write affirmations. Sometimes it worked. For a while. But as soon as I had a string of wins, the discipline faded. I thought I was back. I thought I was ready to scale up. And the cycle began again. It always began with hope. Then control. Then overconfidence. Then chaos. Then regret. Each account I blew up felt like a personal failure. But it also came with a strange relief. Like something heavy had broken. I'd swear off trading for a few days. Go for long walks. Watch movies. Talk to no one. Then the hunger would come back. I'd think, okay, this time I'll go slower. Smaller size. Stick to the plan. And I meant it. Every time. But good intentions aren't enough when your mind is wired for reaction. What I didn't know was that I wasn't really trading the market. I was trading my own need for control. My own fear of loss. My own fear of being ordinary. It took me a long time to understand that those cycles weren't just mistakes. They were mirrors. The market was showing me something about myself. Something I didn't want to see. But at the time, I just thought I needed more discipline. More patience. More study. So I kept going. Trade. Lose. Review. Restart. Trade. Lose. Review. Restart. And in the quiet moments between those loops, I'd whisper to myself, one day, I'll figure it out. One day, it will all click. What I didn't realize yet was that the cycles wouldn't stop until I stopped feeding them. Not with money, not with effort, but with belief. The belief that I could outthink the market. The belief that I deserved to win. The belief that more knowledge would make me more consistent. The cycle wasn't just what I did. It was who I still was. And until that changed, nothing else would. Chapter 5. Strategy Addiction. At some point, I became convinced that the only thing standing between me and consistency was the right strategy. I told myself I had done the emotional work. I had survived the cycle. I just needed a reliable method now. A system that could give me certainty. Something mechanical. Something proven. So I started collecting them. I had folders full of PDFs. Screenshots of chart examples. Backtest results. Trading plans. Systems with acronyms. Systems with names like sniper entry or liquidity trap. I didn't just study them. I memorized them. Printed them. Hung them on the wall. Every week, I was in love with a new method. On Monday I was a breakout trader. By Friday, I was mean reverting. Some days I was a scalper, other days I was waiting hours for confirmation. It felt like evolution. But it was avoidance. I wasn't mastering any of them. I was using them as masks. Trying on new identities so I wouldn't have to face the truth. The truth was this. I didn't trust myself. Not enough to pick one thing and stick with it. Not enough to believe that I could make it work. So I kept looking for the strategy that would do the work for me. The one with a high enough win rate to erase my doubt. The one with rules so clean and sharp that I wouldn't have to feel fear when I clicked the button. I wanted a strategy that would make me feel safe. I didn't know that safety is an illusion in trading. There's no method that removes uncertainty. No signal that silences emotion. And even when I found a method that worked for a few weeks, I'd eventually break it. I'd start tweaking it. Filtering trades. Over-optimizing. Adding indicators, removing indicators, switching timeframes. I told myself I was refining it. But really, I was just running. Because when a strategy failed, I didn't want to blame myself. I wanted to blame it. That way I could stay hopeful. I could keep chasing the next one. And I did. For months. I joined Discord groups and Telegram channels. Read blogs and watched interviews. Everyone had a system. Everyone had a new edge. Everyone seemed to know what I didn't. And that's when the doubt crept in. Maybe I wasn't wired for this. Maybe I was missing something. Maybe I was just unlucky. I started thinking in fragments. I'd look at a chart and see 10 different signals. One told me to go long, another to stay out, another to short. My head was cluttered. My eyes were fogged. I was over-informed and under-focused. And worst of all, I wasn't improving. I was smarter, yes. But not better. I had become a strategy addict. Chasing a feeling, not a process. The truth is, strategies are just tools. Like a hammer or a scalpel. What matters is the hand that uses them. The judgment behind the decision. The presence of mind to know when not to act. But I wasn't ready to hear that yet. So I kept searching. Digging through systems like someone hunting for treasure in a burning house. Blind to the fire, obsessed with the prize. And somewhere deep down, I knew. No strategy would save me. Because I didn't need a new system. I needed to become the kind of person who could follow any system. With patience, discipline, and trust. But that would take more than study. It would take surrender. And I wasn't there yet. Chapter 6. The Account Graveyard. I stopped counting after a while. The first few accounts hurt. Deeply. I remember every detail. The platform, the balance, the trade that wiped it. Each one felt like a small funeral. But after a certain point, they all started to blur together. Small deposits at first. $100, $200. Then more. I told myself I was testing, experimenting, paying tuition. But really, I was caught in a pattern of destruction, disguising itself as growth. Some of the blow-ups were fast. A single over-leveraged position. One emotional decision. A news candle that spiked through my stop. Others were slow, more subtle. A death by 1,000 bad trades. Small losses stacking until I couldn't breathe. Until there was nothing left to protect. Each time I lost an account, I went quiet. Numb. Not from the money. Although that mattered. But from the meaning I attached to it. I thought it said something about me. That I wasn't good enough. That I'd never figure this out. That I was delusional. And yet, every time, after the silence came a flicker. A whisper. Next time, I'll do it right. Next time, I'll stick to the plan. Next time, I'll treat it like a business. I kept coming back. Not out of confidence, but because I couldn't let go. There's something strange about trading. It humbles you, then dares you to return. You see your worst self exposed. And still you show up again. And in those repeated failures, I started noticing something. They weren't all the same. Yes, I was still losing. But how I lost was changing. In the beginning, I blew accounts out of ignorance. I didn't know what I was doing. I was impulsive, reckless, hopeful. Later, I blew them out of inconsistency. I knew better, but couldn't follow through. I had rules, but I broke them. I had discipline, but it collapsed under stress. It was painful. Humiliating at times. I remember staring at empty balances with clenched fists, wondering what was wrong with me. But I also started to learn. I began to see patterns. Not just in the charts, but in myself. I noticed the moments before the tilt. The subtle tightening in my chest before I forced a trade. The boredom that made me open the platform when I wasn't supposed to. The way I'll just check the market turned into I'm down $300. I noticed how the market seemed to expose whatever emotion I hadn't dealt with that day. Anxiety. Frustration. Insecurity. It all showed up in my trades. And slowly, very slowly, I stopped blaming the market. It wasn't the setup. It wasn't the broker. It wasn't the spread. It was me. Not in a self-punishing way. But in a way that opened a door. Because if I was the problem, maybe I could be the solution too. So I started honoring those blown accounts. Not as failures, but as chapters. Grave markers on a map. Proof that I was still walking. Still trying. Still burning off the parts of myself that couldn't survive in this profession. It didn't make the losses easier. But it gave them meaning. Each account I buried taught me something the winners never could. And buried deep beneath that pain, something else was beginning to grow. Chapter 7. First taste of consistency. It didn't come as a breakthrough. There was no perfect trade. No windfall. No aha moment. It started quietly. One green day. Then another. Then a third. Small wins. $20, $35, $42. I remember the numbers because they weren't impressive. But they were stable. And that was new. For the first time, I wasn't trying to double an account overnight. I wasn't chasing the market or trying to recover from a disaster. I was following my rules. Not perfectly, but better than before. The setups were simple. The size was small. I wasn't swinging for home runs. I was just trying to not strike out. And the strange thing? I started enjoying it. The quietness of it. The calm. There's a peace that comes from doing something slowly and deliberately, after months of chaos. It's like stepping out of a storm into still air. I didn't need fireworks. I just needed silence. I remember closing a trade one morning. A won or win. Textbook entry, clean exit. I closed the platform and walked away. Not to celebrate, not to analyze, but because I had done what I came to do. That was the moment I realized. I was starting to respect the process. Not fear it. Not worship it. Just walk alongside it. It was a fragile stage. The temptation to overtrade was still there. The urge to size up after a few wins whispered at me constantly. And sometimes, I gave in. I made mistakes. But I started catching myself sooner. I wasn't consistent yet. But I had tasted what it felt like. Consistency wasn't about never losing. It was about staying in control. About not blowing everything after one bad day. About coming back the next morning with the same clarity I had the day before. I began to protect my account like it was a garden. I stopped needing to grow it fast. I just didn't want to ruin the soil again. I built a checklist. Reviewed it every morning. Set alerts to stay out of the market during volatile hours. I created boundaries. Physical, mental. When the trading window closed, I walked away. I stopped living inside the charts. It wasn't perfect. I still overtraded sometimes. Still doubted myself. Still felt frustration when a setup failed. But the swings weren't as violent anymore. The lows weren't as deep. The highs weren't blinding. I was beginning to flatten the emotional curve. And in doing that, I started noticing something else. I was enjoying the work. The repetition. The preparation. The craft of it. Trading had stopped being about escape. It had become a skill. And for the first time, I wasn't obsessed with the outcome. I was in love with the rhythm. I knew there were still storms ahead. I could feel them waiting. But I also knew this stage mattered. These small wins. These small recoveries. These quiet days. They were proof. Not of success. But of capacity. I was starting to believe. Not that I would become a trader, but that I already was. Chapter 8. The Tilt Demon. It didn't matter how many rules I wrote. It didn't matter how well I planned. It didn't matter how calm I felt that morning. When tilt arrived, it erased everything. It came like a wave. Fast, hot, unstoppable. One trade would go wrong, usually not even by much. I'd miss an entry. Or get stopped out by a wick. Or watch price reverse the second I closed a position. And something inside me would snap. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet shift. A single thought. I need to fix this. That's how tilt always begins. Not in rage, but in urgency. Suddenly, I'd start clicking. Not with purpose, but with need. Adding size. Trading pairs I hadn't planned. Abandoning the strategy I was so proud of just the day before. Watching losses stack faster than I could process them. And worst of all, knowing exactly what I was doing. Watching myself fall. And not stopping. That's the terrifying part about tilt. It's not a surprise. It's a possession. I became someone else during those spirals. Someone reckless. Someone frantic. Someone who would blow a week's work in 20 minutes just to silence a feeling. And then, when the balance was crushed and the platform was closed, the silence would come. The guilt. The shame. The hollow ache of why did I do that again? I'd stare at the screen, at the red numbers, at the log of trades stacked like mistakes on a record. And I'd feel small. All the progress I had made. Gone. All the calm I had cultivated. Shattered. All the discipline I believed in. Now just words on a page I didn't follow. Tilt made me question if I belonged in this business at all. And yet, it taught me something nothing else could. It showed me my limits. It showed me where I broke. It showed me what I wasn't willing to feel. Because tilt isn't just about losses. It's about ego. It's about refusing to be wrong. It's about needing the market to validate something inside of you that feels uncertain, or unseen, or not enough. And as long as I needed that validation, I was vulnerable. So I started watching for the signs. I learned how it built up. Subtle tension, shallow breathing, obsessive chart checking. I noticed the days it was more likely to come. After a fight, after poor sleep, after a winning streak. I noticed the thoughts that triggered it. I can get it back. Just one more trade. I can't end the day like this. Awareness didn't cure me. But it slowed me down. It gave me a gap. A breath. A second chance to choose. And over time, I built systems around those moments. Hard stops. Screen time limits. A rule. When I feel the urge to force a trade, I must walk away. I didn't always succeed. But I began to win a new kind of battle. Not against the market, but against the part of me that couldn't handle uncertainty. And as I started to win that battle, something else emerged. Something quiet. Something powerful. Restraint. And in that restraint, I found something even better than a green day. I found peace. Even in loss. Even in waiting. Even in not trading at all. Because sometimes, the best trade isn't the one you take. It's the one you don't. Chapter 9. Breaking point. There comes a moment in every trader's journey when the pain outweighs the dream. When the charts blur. When the numbers lose meaning. When you sit in front of the screen. Not to trade, but because you don't know where else to go. That moment came for me on a Tuesday. Nothing special. No big news. No catastrophic trade. Just a slow bleed. A day like many before. Except something inside me finally cracked. I watched my panel slide red, and I didn't even feel panic anymore. No rush of adrenaline. No tilt. No fight. Just emptiness. It felt like I had run a marathon, only to realize I was still standing at the starting line. I closed the platform. Sat in silence. Then I cried. Not for the money. Not for the blown account. Not even for the time lost. I cried because I didn't know who I was anymore. Trading had consumed me. My moods depended on it. My self-worth was entangled in green and red. I measured my value in pips, in wins, in drawdowns. And now that it had all collapsed again, I felt hollow. There's a kind of darkness that doesn't scream. It just surrounds you. And in that darkness, I asked myself the one question I had avoided all along. What if I'm not meant for this? The thought was paralyzing. Because trading had become more than a goal. It had become an identity. I didn't know who I was without it. I had no backup plan. No exit strategy. No version of my future that didn't involve charts and screens and freedom. And now, I wasn't sure if I believed in any of it. I thought about quitting. Really quitting. Not just stepping away for a day or two. Not just deleting the app and reinstalling it next week. I mean walking away. For good. Closing the door. Leaving the dream. But then something strange happened. Not inspiration. Not hope. Just stillness. I sat in that broken space for hours. No noise. No strategy videos. No goals. Just me. And for the first time, I saw myself clearly. Not as a trader, but as a person who had tried, failed, and was still here. That mattered. It didn't erase the losses. It didn't fix the damage. But it meant something. Because most people quit long before that moment. Most never survived their breaking point. But I had. And in that space. After the tears, after the anger, after the silence. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Humility. Real humility. Not weakness. Not defeat. Just the deep, quiet understanding that this journey wasn't about control. It was about surrender. Not to the market. But to the truth of who I really was beneath all the noise. And maybe, just maybe, if I rebuilt from there, I could become someone different. Not a better trader. A better person who trades. Chapter 10. Rebuilding from zero. I didn't come back with a bang. There was no epic comeback story. No big deposit. No magical winning streak. I didn't return as a warrior. I returned as a gardener. Quiet. Careful. Tired. I started from zero. Emotionally. Mentally. Financially. And this time, I let that be enough. I opened a tiny account. One I could lose and still sleep at night. I removed everything from my charts. No indicators, no flashy colors. Just candles, time, and space. I wasn't trying to make money anymore. I was trying to understand myself. Each trade became a mirror. A reflection of where I stood, how I felt, whether I was acting from clarity or compulsion. I journaled more than I traded. Some days, I didn't trade at all. I let the opportunity pass. I watched the market like you watch the ocean. Without needing to swim. And in that stillness, I learned things no strategy ever taught me. I learned how long I could sit with uncertainty. I learned how quickly ego tried to sneak back in. I learned how silence felt in the body after a good trade. And how regret felt after a bad one. Most importantly, I learned that success in trading isn't about winning trades. It's about surviving your own impulses long enough to let good trades matter. So I made rules. Not for performance. But for protection. 1 trade a day. Fixed lot size. Screen off after a loss. Meditate before each session. Simple, rigid, sacred. And for the first time, I followed them. Not out of discipline, but out of respect. I respected what the market had shown me. I respected what I had lived through. I respected how easy it would be to fall back into the old patterns if I got even slightly careless. The rebuilding wasn't glamorous. I was trading 1/10 of what I used to. My panel looked like pocket change. No one would have called it success. But something had shifted. I was no longer chasing. No longer proving. No longer needing the market to complete me. Each day I closed green felt like a small miracle. Not because of the money, but because of the restraint. And when I lost, I didn't spiral. I paused. I breathed. I walked away. There was still emotion, yes. The market still poked at the old wounds. But I had space now. A gap between impulse and action. That was my real edge. Not a pattern. Not an indicator. But the ability to stop when I knew I should. And in that space, something new started to grow. Trust. Not in the market. Not in a system. In myself. It was fragile, but real. A quiet strength. A sense that I didn't need to conquer the market. I just needed to cooperate with it. I had tried force. I had tried obsession. Now I was trying presence. And the more I honored that, the more consistent I became. Not just in trading. But in everything. I started sleeping better. I stopped checking charts at midnight. I didn't need to talk about trading all the time. It was becoming part of me, but not all of me. And that, I think, is when I finally started to become a trader. Not someone who trades. Someone who knows why they trade. Chapter 11. The long, boring middle. Nobody talks about this part. The part after the chaos, after the breakthroughs that came after the chaos. This middle stage. Where trading is no longer a crisis. But also no longer a thrill. Just work. Quiet. Repetitive. Focused. Days that feel the same. Setups that look the same. Rules that haven't changed in weeks. You're no longer at war with yourself, but you're also not celebrating. There's nothing to post about. Nothing to brag about. Just quiet execution, over and over. And that's the challenge. You've finally achieved what you wanted. Consistency. But now you have to live with it. Day after day. No roller coaster. No drama. Just discipline. It's a strange adjustment. Because for so long, trading was emotional. It was fire. But now it's a calendar. A checklist. A routine. And you start to miss the highs. Not because you want to lose control. But because, in a strange way, you were addicted to the fight. The comeback stories. The all or nothing days. But real trading. Professional trading. Is boring. You show up. You follow your plan. You win a little. You lose a little. You log the trade. You walk away. The ego hates it. It wants to shake things up. It wants to prove something. But there's nothing left to prove. The account grows slowly now. Steadily. Some months green. Some nearly flat. Some with a small loss. And that's okay. Because now it's not about the outcome. It's about the process. The goal isn't a payout. The goal is showing up well. I started to treat trading like a craft. Like a daily meditation. Wake up. Prepare. Focus. Execute. Detach. The days I did nothing were often the best days. Because I had the patience to wait. The clarity to walk away. The peace to not chase something that wasn't there. I stopped needing every trade to be right. I just needed it to be mine. My setup. My execution. My risk. The funny thing is, when you reach this stage, most people don't understand. They ask, how's trading going? And you say, good. But what you really mean is, it's stable. It's uneventful. It's finally sustainable. This is where the real work is. Not in learning how to trade. But in learning how to keep trading. Without burning out. Without getting greedy. Without getting bored and blowing it all up for entertainment. It's not glamorous. But it's where the professionals live. In the long, boring middle. And if you can live there too. Day in, day out, with patience and peace. You start to see something even better than adrenaline. You see a life. A simple, quiet, autonomous life. Built trade by trade. Day by day. Not in the noise, but in the silence between trades. And slowly, you realize. This is what you were chasing all along. Not the money. Not the glory. Not the screenshots. Just the ability to wake up, do your work, and go to sleep knowing you didn't betray yourself. That's what trading became for me. Not a game. Not a fight. Just a rhythm. My rhythm. Chapter 12. Scaling up the right way. The urge to scale never really leaves. Even in the calm of consistency, there's a voice in the back of your mind that whispers, now it's time. Now you deserve more. And maybe that's true. But after everything I had been through, I knew something with absolute certainty. Scaling is a magnifying glass. It doesn't fix anything. It just reveals what's already there. If you're impulsive, you'll blow up faster. If you're steady, you'll grow stronger. But the market won't change just because your size did. Only you can. So I took it slow. I didn't double my risk overnight. I didn't move from micro lots to minis in a week. I didn't chase targets that didn't align with my system. I scaled with respect. I asked myself, am I executing well with my current size? Not just once. But over weeks. Over months. In drawdowns. In boredom. In pressure. When the answer became a confident, consistent yes. Then I increased risk. Slightly. I watched how it changed me. How it affected my emotions. How it made wins feel bigger, and losses sting more. I journaled through the shift. And when I felt stable again, I stepped up once more. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't fast. But it was sustainable. And slowly, the numbers began to change. A good week that used to be $100 became $300. Then $500. Then 4 figures. But the most important thing wasn't the size of the gain. It was that I didn't lose myself in it. I didn't start forcing trades to hit the number. I didn't start trading longer hours. I didn't change my system just to speed things up. I stayed with the process. I kept the rules that brought me consistency. I trusted the edge that I had proven over time. Scaling, I learned, isn't about adding pressure. It's about maintaining identity as the stakes increase. And when you do it right, something beautiful happens. Your confidence grows. Not from the money, but from the control. You look at a bigger position and think, I know exactly why I'm in this. I know what happens if it wins. I know what happens if it loses. And I accept both. That's freedom. It's not about trading full-time from a beach. It's not about Lambos or trading challenges. It's about waking up, executing your system, and knowing that win or lose, you're still aligned with the trader you've worked so hard to become. And the money? It begins to show up. Slowly. Consistently. And for once, it doesn't define you. It supports you. You don't need to double accounts anymore. You don't need to force success. You just need to keep showing up. Scaling taught me something I didn't expect. It's not about growth. It's about preservation. The more you scale, the more you must protect your process, your mindset, your energy. Because the market doesn't care how much you risk. But it will punish you if you forget what got you here. And so I scaled. Not with excitement, but with respect. Not to escape anything, but to reinforce everything. And the higher I climbed, the more grounded I became. Chapter 13. Trading full-time. The moment I went full-time didn't feel like I thought it would. There was no celebration. No champagne. No, I made it post. Just a quiet morning. I opened my charts. Made my watch list. Took a trade. And when it was over, I closed the screen and walked into the rest of my life. No boss. No meetings. No salary. Just me, my process, and the market. It was everything I had dreamed of. And far more demanding than I had imagined. Because trading full-time isn't just doing more of what you were already doing. It's replacing structure with discipline. It's replacing external accountability with internal control. It's showing up every day. Whether you feel like it or not. There are no shortcuts now. No second income to catch you. No excuse to fall back on. You are the system. You are the edge. You are the only one responsible for keeping the machine running. And that changes you. At first, I felt freedom. Waking up on my own schedule. No commute. Time to prepare. But quickly, I saw the other side. No weekends off. No paid leave. No one to blame. If I overtraded, I paid for it. If I didn't show up, no money came in. If I lost control, there was no paycheck to patch the hole. It's a strange kind of pressure. Quiet, constant. You learn to live with it. To respect it. So I built routines. I created my own work hours. I kept journals not just for trades, but for sleep, energy, mood. I protected my environment. I made trading boring on purpose. Because I knew that excitement led to errors. And errors now were expensive. But there was beauty in it, too. The space to breathe. The time to think clearly. The ability to take a walk at 11 a.m. just because I could. I learned to listen to myself. Not just emotionally, but biologically. Some days I didn't trade at all. Some weeks I only took 3 setups. And I made peace with that. Because full-time trading isn't about trading more. It's about trading better. It's about working less but thinking more. About avoiding the trade that looks good but feels wrong. About knowing that not trading is often the most profitable decision. I stopped trying to prove anything. To anyone. The job was no longer about ego. It was about performance. And that meant making decisions I used to avoid. Cutting bad trades quickly. Skipping days when I felt off. Taking losses like a professional. The dream was no longer a dream. It was real now. And like anything real, it required care. I had to respect the work. Honor the process. Protect my focus like it was my income. Because it was. And slowly, that became enough. I didn't need fireworks. I didn't need validation. I just needed clarity. Space. Peace. And I had earned those things. Not with luck. Not with a winning streak. But with thousands of quiet, deliberate choices. One trade at a time. Chapter 14. The real freedom. People talk about freedom like it's a number. A monthly target. A withdrawal. A funded account. But that's not the real kind. Not the kind I found. The real freedom didn't arrive when I started making consistent profits. It came after that. Quietly, invisibly. When I realized I no longer needed trading to save me. I didn't need it to make me feel important. Didn't need it to make me feel smart. Didn't need it to fill the spaces I hadn't dealt with in myself. That's when everything shifted. Because up until that point, trading had been my obsession. It was my escape plan. My proof that I was different. My hope that I could live a life no one else could touch. But when I reached stability, when the pressure faded and the noise went quiet, I saw what freedom really was. It was space. Mental space. Emotional space. Time to live a life where I wasn't at war with myself every morning. Freedom was walking away from the screen before I got tired. It was watching a setup back me by and feeling nothing at all. It was logging out of the platform and not checking it again until tomorrow. It was eating lunch without a chart in front of me. It was waking up without anxiety. It was knowing I had enough. Today, this week, this month. The money mattered. Of course it did. But it wasn't what made me free. What made me free was the fact that I finally had choice. I wasn't chained to the market anymore. I wasn't chasing every candle. I wasn't trying to prove anything to the world. I had built something sustainable. And now, I could breathe. There was no boss. No clock. No performance review. Only presence. And that presence seeped into every corner of my life. I listened better. I moved slower. I stopped needing things to be dramatic to feel meaningful. My trades became clean. My mind became still. And from that stillness, I found room to build something bigger than a pandal. A life. A rhythm. A sense of inner peace that didn't come from a win. Because the freedom I had been chasing was never about the money. It was about what the money represented. Autonomy, alignment, quiet. I had imagined freedom as some luxury lifestyle. Instead, I found it in the ordinary. A calm mind, a regular walk, a routine I didn't want to escape. I wasn't rich. But I wasn't in survival mode anymore. I had time, and I had clarity. And that, I realized, is the most luxurious thing of all. The real freedom isn't quitting your job. It's not going full time. It's not even being consistent. The real freedom is being able to sit in silence. And not feel like something is missing. Chapter 15. Mastery without noise. Mastery didn't feel like I thought it would. It didn't feel like triumph. It didn't feel like perfection. It didn't feel like I had figured it all out. It felt like silence. Not emptiness. Not boredom. But the absence of noise. No more mental chatter before a trade. No more second-guessing myself in the middle of it. No more obsessing over the result after it was done. I saw the setup. I entered. I managed. I closed. And then I moved on. That was it. No drama. No stories. Just execution. I stopped needing to explain myself. Stopped needing to prove anything. Stopped needing to justify my process to people who hadn't walked the path. My process wasn't flashy. It was refined. Minimal. Clean. I had one setup I trusted. One structure. One risk model. One exit logic. And I followed it like a craftsman follows the shape of his tool. Familiar, precise, comfortable. Mastery wasn't about knowing everything. It was about knowing myself. I didn't chase new systems anymore. I didn't obsess over indicators or try to decode every wick. I didn't care about what other traders were doing. Their path wasn't mine. I had built this edge with my own hands. Trade by trade, loss by loss, lesson by lesson. And now I carried it like a sharpened blade. Not to fight the market. But to move through it. I didn't win every day. I didn't need to. What I did was align. Align my actions with my values. Align my trading with my lifestyle. Align my strategy with my temperament. That's where mastery lived. In the alignment, not the outcome. I no longer sought excitement. I sought efficiency. I no longer wanted more. I wanted less. Less noise, less clutter, less interference between intention and action. And in that space, trading became art. Each session was a stroke on a canvas. Some days blank. Some days chaotic. But I stopped judging the painting. Because I finally trusted the painter. I could walk away for a week and come back without fear. I could lose 5 trades in a row and feel no panic. I could miss a perfect setup and not spiral. Because I knew this game now. Knew its rhythm. Knew my place in it. And more importantly, I knew that trading wasn't who I was. It was something I did. Something I had earned. Something I had mastered. Not by knowing everything, but by simplifying everything. No more constant tweaking. No more searching for magic. No more noise. Just charts. Just rules. Just me. Mastery is quiet. It's subtle. It's invisible to almost everyone. But you feel it. Deep in your body. A calmness in your breath. A lightness in your touch. And when the trade comes, you don't hesitate. You don't doubt. You simply act. And when it's done, win or lose, you return to stillness. Not because you don't care. But because you no longer need to care. The work has been done. The edge is sharp. The mind is still. This is what mastery looks like. Not noise. Not celebration. Just presence. And peace. Conclusion. The trader I became. I didn't become the trader I once imagined. That version. The one with instant confidence, perfect entries, and flawless execution. He never arrived. He was a fantasy. A projection. Someone I thought I had to become to be worthy of this life. Instead, I became someone quieter. Someone slower. Someone more deliberate. I became the trader who knows how to walk away. The trader who knows when not to trade. The trader who isn't ruled by impulse or ego. Not a perfect trader. A professional one. And that difference changed everything. Because I thought this journey would be about mastery over the market. But it was really about mastery over myself. The setups, the strategies, the tools. They mattered. Of course they did. But they weren't the hardest part. The hardest part was facing who I was in the face of risk. The hardest part was staying calm when everything screamed to react. The hardest part was learning to not need the market to tell me who I am. It's strange, looking back. I remember the early days like a dream. So vivid, so dramatic. The nights I couldn't sleep. The accounts I blew. The plans I abandoned. The emotions that tore me apart. But I wouldn't erase any of it. Because every crash taught me something. Every relapse revealed a truth. Every loss peeled back a layer I hadn't yet faced. And that's what makes this path so rare. So personal. So quiet in the end. It starts with fire. With dreams of freedom. With charts glowing in the dark while everyone else sleeps. But if you survive the fire. If you make it through the doubt, the chaos, the tilt, the silence. You come out the other side. Not as a hero, but as a human. One who has learned to sit with uncertainty. To act with restraint. To breathe through fear. To let go of control. And somehow, in the letting go, you gain everything. Not in one big moment. But over years. In losses. In repetition. In the tiniest of choices. That's how a trader is built. Not through luck. Not through hacks. But through truth. The truth of who you are under pressure. The truth of how you respond to failure. The truth of what you believe about yourself. When there's no one else watching. And that truth. When faced, accepted, refined. Is what finally shapes the edge that matters most. Not your system. Not your stats. You. So no, I didn't become the trader I dreamed of. I became something better. I became real. Grounded. Calm. Alive. Not every day. Not every trade. But enough. Enough to keep going. Enough to make it work. Enough to say, with quiet certainty. I built this. With every mistake. With every setback. With every silent morning I chose to return. This is my edge now. Not just in the market. But in life.